The engine hummed softly, the dashboard lights casting an eerie glow in the darkness. I glanced at my watch. It was well past midnight, and I was driving alone on a desolate stretch of highway. My heart raced with a mix of excitement and trepidation as I thought about the camping trip ahead. Little did I know that this road would soon become a nightmare I could never escape. The forest loomed on either side, tall trees casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance with every gust of wind. The road ahead twisted and turned like a serpent, and the headlights barely reached far enough to pierce the darkness. My grip on the steering wheel tightened as a sense of foreboding settled over me. It all started with a flicker, a brief, momentary interruption of the car's electrical systems. The headlights dimmed, then returned to full brightness. I shook it off as a glitch and continued on, but my unease grew. Every now and then, the dashboard lights would flash, and the radio emitted bursts of static, sending shivers down my spine. As I pressed on, my mind started playing tricks on me. I thought I saw figures darting between the trees, their eyes reflecting the light in an unnatural, ghastly manner. My heart pounded louder, and I questioned whether my tired mind was conjuring these images, or if something more sinister was at play. My gas gauge showed that I was running low, and panic crept into my mind. There was no sign of civilization, no gas station, or even a house in sight. I prayed the engine would hold on just a bit longer until I found a place to refuel. Suddenly, my headlights illuminated an old, weathered sign on the side of the road. Next gas station, 10 miles. Relief washed over me. I could make it 10 miles, I thought, but my relief was short-lived when I saw the sign's unsettling message underneath in faded red letters. Beware the night. Brushing it off as a local legend meant to spook travelers, I continued driving, trying not to let my imagination run wild. But then the flickering became more frequent, and the radio now played eerie whispers that I couldn't quite make out. My heart was racing, and I could feel my palms growing damp on the steering wheel. The road seemed to stretch on endlessly, and the forest grew thicker, closing in around me. The shadows seemed to take on sinister shapes, and I caught glimpses of twisted, gnarled hands reaching out from the darkness. My breaths came in shallow gasps as I tried to convince myself that it was all just my mind playing tricks on me. But as I drove, the atmosphere around me changed. The air grew colder, and the forest seemed to close in even tighter. My headlights began to flicker rapidly, plunging me into darkness for split seconds at a time. Panic set in, and I considered pulling over and waiting for daylight. But the gas station was still a few miles away, and I didn't want to be stranded in the middle of nowhere. With every mile, the feeling of being watched intensified. I could swear that I saw eyes peering at me from behind the trees, glowing like burning coals. My fear reached its peak when I saw a figure dart across the road ahead, its form indiscernible but undeniably menacing. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding in my chest. My breath hitched as I stared into the inky blackness ahead. Nothing. There was nothing there. I tried to shake off the terror, telling myself it was just a deer or some other animal. But then, from the edge of the road, emerged a figure. A woman with long, matted hair and a tattered white dress that swayed in the wind. She walked towards me with an unnatural gait, her eyes locked on mine. Her face was a twisted mask of anguish, and as she drew nearer, I could see that her dress was stained with something dark and crimson. Terrified, I stepped on the gas, swerving around her as she reached out with skeletal fingers. Her mournful wails echoed in my ears as I sped away, the headlights flickering wildly. I dared not look back, fearing what I might see. Finally, the gas station came into view, its neon sign a beacon of salvation. I parked the car and practically ran to the attendant, a middle-aged man with a weary expression. "You won't believe what I just saw," I blurted out, my voice trembling. He looked at me with a knowing glint in his eyes. "Oh, I believe you, son. This road is cursed, you know. It has been for years. People have reported all sorts of strange occurrences out there in the dead of night." I listened in disbelief as he recounted stories of lost souls, restless spirits, and tragic accidents that had befallen those who dared to drive this road after dark. Leaving the gas station, I knew I had to make a choice. Drive back through the haunted stretch of highway or find an alternate route, even if it meant a longer journey. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, but in the end, I couldn't bring myself to face that road again. As I took the longer route, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still following me. I couldn't forget the tortured face of the woman in white, or the haunting wails that echoed in my ears. and in the back of my mind, I knew that no matter how far I drove, I could never truly escape the horror that had unfolded on that night road. From that night on, I never drove at night again. The memory of that terrifying journey stayed with me, a constant reminder that some roads are best left untraveled when the sun goes down. And whenever I hear a faint flicker of lights or the distant sound of static, I'm reminded of the darkness that lurks just beyond the reach of our headlights, a darkness that holds horrors beyond imagination. So heed this warning. If you ever find yourself on a desolate road late at night, keep your wits about you, for you never know what terrors lie in wait just beyond the beam of your headlights.